Hello, hello. Hello, hello. We're going to begin shortly. Just trying to take the pages that I need. Hi, Susie. Hey, how is that? Did it finally stop snowing at your place? And like, well, I guess New Jersey must know how to handle snowfalls and storms. So are they on it? Are they on it? Tell me what's going on. Tell me what's going on. Just waiting to hear an update on Susie's snowstorm. As you can tell from my voice, I am still struggling with this, whatever it is, head cold, essentially, I guess. So, what I wanted to do today is number one, bring you up to date on how last Tuesday's project turned out. And I realized, oh, you know what? For the first time ever, I'm looking at my external monitor to see what you can see. Typically, my camera's just facing downward, and I do not know, if I'm in frame or whatever. This is a little unsettling. This is the first week I'm doing something like this with my new setup. I now have this gigantic external monitor, which means that I've had to reconfigure everything. So my camera's at a funny angle. I don't know if that's going to mean things are distorted or what, but anyway, I wanted to, for those of you that were here last week, you know that I tried something different in that I had glued down different varieties of fabrics in scrap form. And then with you began adding different media to it. So we used ink, we used Neocolors, we used Posca pens, we used acrylic paint. And the last thing I did before leaving was had added a number of these white paint circles using this little tiny bottle. And it looked pretty good at the time. However, as this dried, because this paper was so saturated with water and these other things that I've mentioned, oh, we also used distress spray, you can see that the wet paint picked up wherever the paper was wet, it picked up So here are a couple of pure white dots. It must have been dry over there and maybe dry over here, but the rest of this picked up whatever color was adjacent to it. So sometimes it's a peachy color and sometimes it was more blue. Oh, okay. Susie's giving an update. As we speak, finally, a plow is at my apartment. 18 inches. Oh my goodness. That, I mean, I've never seen a snowfall like that. But then I guess that's more typical. The closer one is to the coast. My car is very covered. The plow is going to help box me in more. I can't shovel with your back, so warmer temps are coming. I would think it's going to, even with warmer temperatures, it's going to take some time for that amount of snow to melt. And you really hope that the storm sewer, what is that what they're called? Storm sewers are ready to hang on to, or are ready to handle the flow. So I am going to carry on here. And assuming that if people aren't able to get here for the live, perhaps they will pick this up in replay. I've never had this happen before. So, hey, welcome to the world of lives. So in fact, this is going to feel a lot like just taping a video. So I'm going to talk to myself. Okay, so the crowd that was here last Tuesday was very engaged, and someone said, "Oh, white splatters, do white splatters," and I didn't because, well, they're messy. I like the look of them, but I don't like doing them. So I thought, well, you can't disappoint your people. Let's do them this morning. So I've got spatter on me. I've got spatter on the surrounding space. Because I'm still sick and intend to go back to bed, I am wearing my pajama bottoms, and I wasn't sitting close enough to the desk, so I got paint on my glasses, I got paint on my pajamas. So yeah, and I had used, I watered down some paint out of this condiment bottle and used this fan brush. But again, not my favorite technique. But you can see that even the spatters that I added today, these tiniest dots, most of them, and even those, this is well dry, most of them did not remain white. So, there are some conclusions to draw from this experiment. Oh, and the other thing I did was I kind of went over these gold swirls with another layer of paint. So in some places, it's really thick, like this is a definite bump here. In other places, it's almost disappeared. And in every area, it seems to have picked, like what I see when I look at this and change the angle, is that what should be, excuse me, a bright gold, like this, has kind of turned green. So anyway, I just wanted to bring you up to date with that. I don't know. I think I did a video on, or it might have been, I don't know. I'm so confused. I just wanted to show you how I finished off this grid page. I think grids might have been the first or second thing that we did here. Anyway, so this was some of that mesh, some scrap paper, some sheer teal, like chiffon type fabric. The stamping had been done in the background. I fussy cut this giant orange chair and glued it down, and I love how it looks. Now, it had a toss cushion on it, but of course, in a color that had nothing to do with what's going on here. So I actually glued down I just went back and forth with a strand of yarn to add a nice fuzzy cushion to this operation. So I'm going to move on from this. I can find where the cover is. Now, my husband went to town yesterday and picked up the mail, and I was really pleased because it's a rare occurrence around here that I got a couple of pieces of Happy Mail. Now, this first one, I didn't realize that the Dee Dee Willingham is in Georgia. I had tuned into one of her lives, and if you know her at all, she, I gather, makes a practice of doing giveaways. So she does international and she does US. So I happen to be one of the people chosen to receive something from her in the international draw. So this arrived. The video that I caught her doing was Valentine themed. So essentially she put together, and I think what's interesting about what she does, excuse me, is that she kind of makes these prizes up as she goes along. So she'll distribute her materials into 6 piles. Oh, that's washi tape. Photo corners. I never think of using these. So this is all pretty darn cute. And I think this came in a pretty reasonable amount of time. So this appears to be a gel print that she's probably stenciled on after the fact. So I'll scoop that up. Again, that was Dee Dee Willingham. I did a video not so long ago on using up ugly postcards, and that was as a direct result of what I saw her doing with in a video. So, and then this one is made of book pages. Looks old, and it's from a woman in, oh, now I think I know. Anyway, let me open this up. I think I'm going to, rather than using this, I think I figured out who this is. I think I will probably do this one off camera because it looks like it's a note or a letter or something like that. Okay, we'll put this one aside. I will check this out privately. Okay, so one more thing that I wanted to, maybe my doohickey, my setup here is not conducive to this. I was going to, oh, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. I was going to show you this painting. Now, I have to say, the way this is reading on my external monitor, oh, hi, Angela. The way this is reading on my external monitor is not very accurate. Those background colors are coming up far bluer than they are in real life. So I will just say before I get to today's project, and some of you will have heard me complain about this last time. When I did a video showing you 3 mixed media canvases that I had been working on, I asked you to vote on which one you wanted me to work on next. And the majority of people chose this one. So, as you know, when you get to the end of a project, you need to really slow down and you really need to pick to make your next move with some forethought and, just go slow is essentially what I'm trying to say. So I had a number of paint chips, and using that god awful white sticky tack, you saw me frustrated with that last time, I think. I began positioning some colors that I thought could work here around this substrate in a variety of positions and configurations, and I had overlapping and whatnot. This one got damaged in the process. I should cut that off. Anyway, what I did was I used the sticky tack to try out, as Rachel would say, audition some of the possible solutions or some of the possible next steps I could take. So because this has all gone to hell in a handbasket, I don't remember what I had where. However, this, and I'm not trying to reconstruct it, and I'm not going to work on this today, but I just wanted to show you that if you ever get to that point in your own project where you aren't sure what to do next, a really solid strategy is to, well, if you have paint chips, great. If not, paint some of your own paint chips using colors from the project. So I think that and this may not be the right color, but bear with me. I might have had it like so. So I began positioning colors or shapes where I thought they needed to be. And now that in itself is not going to be the answer to this. So I had other variations, maybe bring some lighter colors into this. So essentially, if you have some decent sticky tack to work with, you can position things the way you think you might want them and temporarily tack them down and then set it up someplace where you can view it, unexpectedly later that day, the next day for the next week, as long as it might take. Oh, hi, Julie. Hi, Carrie. Yeah, Susie is digging out or having to dig out. So, for those of you who are just joining, I showed you an update of how last week's project turned out. Maybe I'll just pull that out and show you, Julie, because you were here for that. So, I was working this mixed media thing. I had used, well, this looks lovely with this underneath, not. So I was saying to the people that the white paint dots that I added at the end clearly, through a process of osmosis, picked up the wetness, the color of the wetness underneath it. So the dots turned blue and they turned this peachy color. And even this morning, when I managed to splatter my pajama bottoms, my hands, my glasses, the splatter that I added this morning also got discolored. So, I mean, I guess we can put on our thinking caps and try to figure out why. Oh, and I wanted to show you. Oh, thanks, Julie. To me, like, as you know, if you watched last week, this was a total experiment. I'd never seen anyone do it before. Didn't know how it was going to turn out. And obviously took a turn towards grungy. But I did want to show you, because I love this so much. I added this orange chair And this yarn I used yarn bits to cover the cushion that was the wrong color for this layout. But I love how this grid collage turned out. Yes, I did use paint for the splatter. And, you know, after I splattered everything around me, including myself, it was a good reminder as to why, as much as I love the look of splatter, I don't like doing it because it seems I don't have the control I need, and I don't have enough drop cloths and sheets and everything around me to you know, to make that work. And in this part, before I get to the actual, yeah, the chair is cool. Um, after when I get to my actual project today, I was just giving an update on this acrylic canvas that I had started years ago. It's 24 by 12, doesn't entirely fit on this thing, but I was using paint chips and sticky tack as a way to try out different color solutions in different areas of this thing. Now, I hope to get to a dollar store in a couple of days, and I will buy some decent sticky tack. And once I figure out what I want to do, I will do it on camera because, as I said at the beginning, or as I said a few minutes ago, at this stage of a project, of a paintings, at this stage of the game in a painting, the next moves require that you be really slow, thoughtful, and deliberate. Oh, there's some goo I didn't pick off. Anyway, enough about that. Oh, Tim Holtz splatter box and splatter brush. Okay. I do have actually a splatter box, but didn't think of using it. Now you tell me. Yeah. Okay. So those of you who watch my channel with any kind of regularity know that at one point I took apart a French, oops, upside down, a French interior design book. And I have flipped through this in the past. I can't find, I don't have a real cover. That's what it is. Okay, so I have all the pages torn out, sort of squared off, and I punched holes in them so that I could, you know, remove pages to work on them. So I'm going to pull this one. Oh, I'm still upside down. Some of the pages I have prepped using gesso because, of course, if it's a book, whoops, if it's a book you want, you know, typically you probably don't want to work on the book pages. Although this is matte, on the really glossy pages where there are photographs, let me just show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so on some pages, I've glued down papers. You know, like in this case, music papers. In other cases, I've done some background work. So this would have been probably what, stenciling, mark making. This is gift wrap. There are some pages I haven't touched at all. There are some pages that are further along and who knows, maybe even complete. But then on a page like this where I've done nothing, it would be difficult to just, you know, probably come into this and begin doing something. Mixed media, again, some stuff from before. There's Hazel, whatever. How old would I have been there? Maybe 2, 3. Okay, I think this is what I'm considering my covers. So a few days or weeks ago, oh, I accidentally took out 2 pages or 3 pages. Oh my goodness. You can see I just did gesso as a way to give the pages some tooth. I'm still upside down. To give the pages some tooth and to kind of neutralize the background. Okay, get this out of the way. I'm sorry. It looks just like you. Yeah. So I was decanting, it seems that a lot of the big names out there are using these condiment bottles because it's easier to get the paint out. And in my case, I like with this yellow, I had combined a number of started bottles of different yellows, and I thought yellow's not my favorite color. Let me throw this all together and get rid of it once and for all. So anyway, it was during that process of getting rid of some of those small starter bottles that I ended up with a bunch of paint. Now, I don't know if you can tell. There is a lot of texture here. It took, I think, a couple of days for this to actually dry, but you can see that it goes from, basically a splatter type effect to really thick, kind of a 1/16 of an inch thick. So this has been in the back of my mind thinking, okay, now what? So what I have, but then I thought, I shouldn't do this without the girls. So yesterday, I just started making a few very amorphous looking flower shapes. So I don't know if that's the direction I want to go. I do have, some paint ready to go if necessary. I have a stipple brush if I wanted to use that pouncing technique to add some flowers. I also pulled out some napkins because I'm thinking, napkins definitely would work here. So if the intention, and who knows what the intention really is, because I don't, if the intention is to turn this into, a page full of flowers, then it might be kind of nice to have some imagery of foliage. This is probably a little too dainty for that. I have this one. These are napkins, obviously, and some of them I've already separated. So I could see, putting down some fern type motifs in the background. I came across this one. I thought very graphic. So it's got ladybugs. So of course the red plays into this very nicely. Now they would probably be near the top kind of layer because just because of their nature. But never underestimate the value of the borders and these kind of, geometric type thing with the polka dots and the. I also toyed with the idea. Now this one is a very, again, drawn to the reds here. Some of these flowers, rather than me painting them. Oh, I guess that's the only one that's kind of a bigger size. I could use some of those yellows, though. I could use the grapes. I could use the small clusters. We also know that with napkins, typically napkins are printed on a light colored ground so that when we glue something like this down, it tends to allow the background to show through. But since we here in these videos or in these lives are committed to experimentation and screwing up and making mistakes and changing horses in midstream, it would be, I'm half tempted to try something with a black background just to see what would happen. Now I don't think I've gotten the final layer off there, or the last layer off there. So let's just see. The trick I use, unless napkins come apart very almost on their own. The trick I use is a piece of Scotch tape in an inconspicuous space, typically the corner, and you can see that that's enough to get you started. So just for my own curiosity and perhaps yours, I may just try using some black on here. We also know that whole design concept that you want a bit of black, whether you're doing interiors or whether you're doing art, that you want some black to ground the piece. And I also picked this one again because of the black and white polka dots. So maybe, since black you would think would overpower anything that I would pick from this one, maybe let's just glue down, for the sake of actually beginning, let's glue down something, some motifs, and see what happens. So let's go big or go home. I typically don't fool around with a water brush. I know some people like that technique for getting a nice organic torn edge. I find it just as easy to tear where I want to go. So I'm tearing this rather big viney type thing to because if we're going to screw up here, we might as well do it like all out. Because I promised myself that I would be bolder. Actually, maybe I have to take that Queen Anne's lace too. And the bird. This is turning out to be bigger than I thought it would be, but that's fine. Okay, so we got something like that. Am I right side up? Yes, I am. Okay. So, now, because 3 of my edges are torn, I have the option of either tearing my bottom edge so that it goes with and, looks cohesive with the other edges, or I can use that as an anchor point to attach this to my substrate. So I think I'm going to do that. I need something to glue on. I just used my Yoo-Hoo glue stick. Again, in a context like this, typically you're going to have better results and fewer tears and so on if you apply your glue to the substrate rather than the napkin, because napkins are weak. So I'm just going to make a couple of points with pencil. Sorry. Giving basically a little bit of guidance as to where I should be applying the glue. Now, in a mixed media piece, there are going to be so many other things added that even, I should maybe erase, the heck with it. I was going to say I should erase those little, I can't really see where I made those marks, but let's go for it. So you want a fairly thick application. Now, you can see that this is going to be interesting from a couple of perspectives, both because it's black, a black background on the napkin, and also because there's so much texture. Honestly, I can't see most of what I wrote down, or most of the marks I made. So we're gonna pray for the best. That's really kind of gooey there. I don't know why the glue is acting like that. This is a very, in my opinion, very reliable glue. And I love that the art store that I support in Edmonton I buy it by the box of 12, and I buy a few boxes at a time every time it goes on sale. And they're the 40-gram size, so it's not like you just barely started gluing and you need to grab a new glue stick. It lasts a long time. So I'm going to do my best to line this up at the edge of the page so that I have a nice good line there. Oh, brother. I've got glue there that I didn't need. So I'm just going to lay this down and apply gentle pressure with my fingers to, probably didn't go high. Oh, I guess I did. I was going to say probably didn't go high enough. Yeah, I missed the mark in a few places here. Okay, so what we're seeing is that it totally masks and obliterates whatever was underneath it. Now, I'm going to try my best not to overwork this because I could still tear it at this point if I'm not gentle. Now, I have a whole bunch of glue there. Wonder. I'm going to try to pick some of that up because it's an accident waiting for a place to happen. So maybe tell me in the comments, okay, I'm just trying to catch up. I mean, a splatter brush and not a box, but a folded one will be a marvelous idea. Oh, you know what might work? A banker's box. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Like I have just a box that, just a box that came into the house. I just tuck it into one of the closets here in the house. But clearly, oh, geez, look what I just did. So sometimes if you are gentle, you can reposition. Like I just tore that. But if I drag it back carefully, actually, this has just made me think of something. Because of that tear, I now have little teensy bit, and same here. I have teensy bits of red showing. So why don't I deliberately introduce some more of the background? What should I use? What should I use? A staple puller? Why don't I just use some of this to tear away more of this black, since we now know that it totally obscures what's underneath. If you've watched Catherine Rains at all, you know that she typically does that when she's adding tissue to her. I guess I don't need these things here anymore. Adding tissue to her collages. When I was doing her free course, the start of the year, I found that a painstaking process. And I think I talked about that in a video that I would rather avoid having to do that than go through that in the first place, but to each his own. I could also just maybe do some mark, essentially reverse mark making, just by opening up doing some deliberate tears here to reveal some more of the red. Love the black on the red. Yeah, Julie, honestly. Oh, and thanks, Carrie, for that reminder. So Carrie, because I've been a bit under the weather and, have so many balls in the air right at the moment, including getting ready for kind of a very demanding course. I haven't been watching videos as I should. Oh, I should also be putting in a plug for tomorrow's Heart to Heart. If you have caught if you are the proud owner of any uppercase books or magazines, you know how wonderful they are. If you have caught any of the flip throughs of the books in Janine's Encyclopedia of Inspiration series of publications, you know how lucky you are, or how gorgeous the publications are. I could leave these ridges. I don't know if you can tell that, but what I'm doing is forming these ridges. Now, you know what? I think rather than remove them, I'm just going to let them build there because, mixed media is about building texture. Anyway, so those of you who watched my videos after I came back from Mexico know that I had taken one. That was the only book I took one of her books with me, and that was the only thing I did. Read it cover to cover, took inspiration, made notes, began reading it again, cover to cover. So, anyway, I think just in the last few days, I scheduled a flip through of her glue book, her book on glue. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know that it's not a glue book in the sense that, she glued a bunch of stuff down. It's a book devoted to adhesives and how people attach stuff to other stuff. Anyway, I am giddy that I'm getting the chance to interview Janine tomorrow. She's the editor, she's the publisher, she's the creative behind that whole series of publications. And so I was doing research for that yesterday. She doesn't have a YouTube channel or anything like that. Goodness knows she's got her hands full. But basically, I was just revisiting her publications and knowing what I know about her, coming up with a list of topics I want to cover with her. I think it is going to be exceptional content. So I encourage you to attend if you can or catch the replay. Okay, maybe I don't know. Oh, Carrie, that would be nice. Okay, Ellie, thank you. Ellie says, what you're doing now makes it more interesting. Okay, well, so it also seems that I've, I guess doing mixed media of all the activities gives us the opportunity and the permission to change our ideas as we go along. So this is not what I intended. I thought I was turning this whole thing. First of all, I'll tell you, I thought that I was going to doodle either with my Posca pens or, probably Posca pens, because it would be very damaging to just nib pens because it's so textured. But then I thought, well, is that much of an experiment or an eye opener, or that's not going to give us the possibility for discovery, like I hope is the purpose of these live mixed media things, where we experiment, we throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, where we learn what works and what doesn't, as evidenced by what I showed you at the beginning. I suppose I could also use that would give us a different mark, my pokey thing. It would give us probably more well, smaller marks or thinner marks. And, this is only going to work while that glue is still and the paper and the napkin is still kind of wet. So, and I guess, we're kind of getting the feel for what this is going to do. I should probably do a couple more random areas and then move on to adding another. Whoops, this is probably maybe too late for this. Oh, I guess if I get in there a little more vigorously, I can abrade that surface and make this work somewhat. Oops. I never worry too much if the actual edge of my napkin doesn't stick down because it's just another opportunity to get a more natural or organic looking line. And to say that, am I feeling better? Well, no. I don't know about anybody else, and maybe tell me this in the comments. Like, I'm a baby boomer, so what distinguishes our cohort of people is that we have a work ethic, and we're responsible. If we had a motto, it's probably keep calm and carry on. So tell me, when you and I'm, we're talking about something, not very serious. So we're talking about a cold. We're not talking the flu. We're not talking, you know, a chronic, you know, really serious medical condition. We're talking about cold, flu, that kind of stuff. What is your MO? Do you drop everything, start with the fluids, the chicken soup, the rest, and, over the counter stuff that can help you get better? Or do you, because of your work ethic, belief system, whatever you want to call it, attempt to power through? My impulse is to power through, and I think that is often a mistake. So yesterday, after doing kind of what I thought was the bare minimum, I did take to my bed. I've been wearing pajamas for days now, so not getting dressed. That's how I ended up with paint splatters on pajama bottoms today. So anyway, I take to my bed. Of course, I'm not just, sleeping or whatever, resting my eyes. I'm looking at Janine's publications because the show must go on. I have to do my research. I want the inspiration and the eye candy of looking at what she creates. Okay, I need to pause and see what I'm doing here. I'm not caring for this, so I better. Oh, see, that was where the glue was the smeariest. So somehow I did manage to have a nap, and I woke up and felt refreshed. But I also discovered that too much, and of course I was sitting in bed, too much sitting makes for one sore back end, and I just needed to move around. So I moved from office to bed and to the living room and back. My nights have been kind of broken up because, of course, you got to get up to pee at least once. And then that, of course, seems to, oh, well, let's have a coughing jag while we're here. And it's just, I don't know. It's a pain in the butt. All I can say. I'm just going to try to see if I can pick up some of that excess glue there. I'm not sure I like that part there, but I think for the sake of your time, I need to move on to probably laying down another piece. So we know that out of one napkin, depending how it's printed, you're going to get 4 identical quadrants, or you're going to get a variety of panels, so to speak, to choose from. So if I want now, oh, see, why wasn't somebody here? I'm giving you full credit for coughing through the interview. I've got the crud now too. I thought I could pose through. I'm still in my jammies too. I don't. Is that an autocorrect or an autocorrect or whatever? Yeah, there's that adage. If you get a cold, you can throw everything at it, medication, chicken soup, the fluids, whatever, and it's going to last 7 days. And then, or you could do nothing and it's going to last a week. So, I don't know. I switched. I've been not drinking. I've been chugging Benylin cough syrup. No, I've been using that, and honestly, I think it's had ample time to start doing something. It hasn't. So I pulled out the big guns this morning, and I used Buckley's. Now, I don't know. You Americans tell me, is Buckley's even available in your country? And if it is, that those commercials where they show people shuddering and gasping and practically getting knocked over, they're pretty accurate. You're not going to take a dose of that and think that you had some sweet syrupy concoction gently sliding down your throat. Oh no, it's not like that at all. But I'm thinking, maybe it'll separate the men from the boys and help me turn a corner here. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised, although I don't know that science backs this up. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if all this fluctuation in weather from, um, we had a huge warm spell. We had rain. We had frigid temperatures. We had ice. We had snow. Like, I think old wives' tales would tell you that you're going to catch the death of you through all that up and down, back and forth. So I don't know if that's true or not. So maybe I should just do something here and move on. So did anyone answer? Do you rest? Oh, so Angela is saying that she pushes through. Julie is saying, hope you feel better soon. My son has had whatever this is twice. My daughter got the flu a few weeks ago, and now my son is sick again. I've been getting the flu shot faithfully every October when it becomes available for probably close to 30 years, and I've never had the flu. Touch wood. Also in Canada, when you're a woman, when you're a person of a certain age, they also encourage that we get the pneumonia vaccine. So I've had that as well. So, this, and I realize it probably sound like a baby here complaining about a sore throat and a nose that occasionally drips. That is, that's wimpy stuff. There are people who suffer far more day in and day out. So let's stop the whining. Okay, so that's not perfect, but it gives you an idea, and I do want to add another motif. So I started to say, as I was looking at this to see what's left, I made, not that it's necessarily a mistake, but my holes. So this page is going to go back into that ring thing with this being a left facing page. So if you've ever listened to me at all talk about how I do composition, you know that I do not typically, except today, have my person, bird, animal, whatever, something that's alive and with eyes looking out of the picture plane. I should have picked a motif like maybe this one where these two birds are facing that away because they're inviting the eye into the picture plane as opposed to, oh, what's going on over here? So that was, it just goes to show that if we're not paying attention or if we're not in our best, condition, we can make amateur mistakes. Okay, this was just dangling off there. Let's see what I have here. And of course, I used a gigantic piece there, but oh, and you know what? I should tear a piece of this fern out of here and see if that thought makes any sense at all now that I have that very graphic black going on. The risk here is that if I don't add some other colors, the red and green is going to smack of Christmas, and that's the last thing I want here. So I'm going to, we'll just tear out one of these things and see. The black may be, looking at the monitor. Might have to do a second little test. So again, because the way my brain is wired, I'm always looking to see. Now it might come across as self-criticism, but I'm always looking to see what is the lesson, what is the takeaway. So given that the black totally obscured the background, it would have been better, had I known that, it would have been better probably to layer green underneath, like, at the bottom here, and then use black in small doses as a top layer. But I'm just going to tear out a few more things and see if I can salvage that, even though it's kind of doing this in the wrong order. I think I'll leave those little flowers there because, of course, I do have to, if I'm turning this into some sort of a floral thing, I do have to introduce other flowers. Okay. Oh, Carrie, sorry, I didn't see that you're going. I hope you're here to hear me say goodbye. Um, oh, and Julie says she powers through when she said, yeah, I think we're cut from the same cloth. Yeah, we do what we do, and maybe don't stop to analyze if it's if it's the best choice. I think, my husband is at a council meeting today, so I think that once I'm done with this live, I think I might just maybe take some melatonin or something and see if I can force myself to fall asleep. And I have enough material to interview Janine tomorrow. So I'm good. I'm in good shape that way. You know what? Instead of fooling around with this, I think I'm just going to be bold and start gluing some of these things down, because honestly, I'm getting annoyed with myself here. And I'm going to, this is big. This is going to cover some of the black, but let's see what that does. Let's see what that happens. Let's see if I can contain my glue this time to kind of more where I need it. Not fill this hole with glue. Okay, so that little blue flower is showing. Maybe I'll tear some of this off since I didn't get glue. Whoops. So the red has now been pushed back and is reading more like a little mottled pink. So that's okay. And even here where it's gone over the black, it's not bad. So let's do this in a few more places so we have some cohesiveness going on. Okay, so we're going to go from that blob to this blob and then work our way back. That's how you keep track, blob to blob. Yeah, this glue is very kind of, look at, I don't know what's going on. And it certainly shouldn't, it's not, unless these lights of mine are making it kind of act weird because it's kind of warm. I don't feel that it's really that the lights are giving off any heat, but who knows? I'm not a glue stick. Again, you can see that in some places I didn't go far enough with the glue. I have the option of either trying to get under there, or I could have just torn that back. Either way, I've done both in the past. Those things seem to be holding. This is not. John Deere equipment looks fun. Oh, give yourself permission to rest. Okay. That is, well, and I'm not only going to rely on my own permission, I'm going to rely on yours, Julie. Julie said, take a nap. Susie, it is fascinating to watch men at work and heavy equipment. We, of course, live on a country road because we live on a farm. So it was, I guess, our turn in the grand scheme of things to have roadside mulching done. So essentially what that means is that every, I don't know, 10 years or whatever, the county will designate some roads to mulch trees and shrubs that are, encroaching in the ditch and making, worsening the situation for drifting and impeding the work of a snowplow or a grader. So, because we had so much snow, I guess that's sort of, apparently it works best when it's about 20 below, because then I guess the trees, the shrubs, they probably break off more cleanly rather than when they're actively growing. Like you'd never do that in spring or summer, but so it was cold enough, but there was also all that snow. So it's amazing that I'm always amazed at people who invent things. To me, it's amazing that somebody invented the tool or the attachment or whatever it is, the machine that can sort of almost with a grapple grab, willow shrubs or whatever to kind of chew them up. So there were different machines for different parts of the job. Some that would yank them out by the roots, others that would chop them up into mulch. And it is fascinating to watch that stuff. That was actually one day, they were doing some of that last week. And when I finally gave my permission, see, Julie is now, she's almost like a doctor. She's prescribing a nap, and I'm a good patient, so I'm going to listen to her. Anyway, one day last week when I thought, boy, I think I could benefit from a little snoozeruno. But of course, the master bedroom is on the road side of the house. And between the beep, 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 as they're backing up every time as a safety precaution, I'm hoping that, well, okay, if you've been here before, or if you've heard anybody, most people who are doing mixed media work will tell you you have to persevere through the ugly stage. This is at the ugly stage, I would say. Okay, so clearly I have to introduce more foliage here, so let me do that. So yeah, that was hopeless to try to fall asleep with the beep, beep, beep going on, but let me get a little, is that a cornflower? Or scabiosa? I guess I don't want it though because it's upside down. I might have to, let me see. This is how you end up with it. You start out with one napkin and you end up with 48 pieces because of this very strategy. So I think I'd better have something overlap into this area that I've sort of exposed here. Now maybe with this small piece, I will see what happens if I apply the thing to here gently. Hold your breath. Oh, I typically don't worry about tears because, of course, it's not going to matter. But also, if you're really careful, you can, as I'm going to right here, reassemble, reconnect the pieces that got separated in the tear. Okay, I find that I do less damage if I use the heel of my hand to press as opposed to fingers. Okay. And again, just at the periphery, peeling back some of that excess that I think would look better if it wasn't there. Well, that was poor grammar, but you know what I mean. I think that it would look better if it wasn't there. Oh, this black thing still hasn't totally dried. And of course, that's the problem with doing, this kind of stuff live and that's part of what I think factored into how last week's project turned out, is that there was no drying time allowed. It was just, okay, keep going, keep going, keep going. Now I might want something very small like this in the corner because we can't have this without, this is another, was I not even, showing you. For a very tiny piece, sometimes this is the most effective way to just gently, you know, rub it up against the top of your glue stick. And you wouldn't want to do that for big pieces, though, because I doubt that it would work very well. I guess this guy wants to go down next. Okay. Some of these bits of fern are different colors. Let's see if I can do it with a piece this big. If you like playing with fire, this is a good thing to try. But again, maybe it invites accidents, and maybe it forces a person to be a little more spontaneous and just, okay, I'll do it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And, not be as timid as well, I'll speak for myself, as sometimes I have been. I think I have well, I don't know when it's scheduled for, and I'm not going to bother looking to tell you, but I do have, I registered for that 52-week class through Kelly at Collage Lab. And some of you may have caught that interview when I interviewed her. I think that was last November. Anyway, I have fallen behind with some of those lessons. Again, it's self-paced, so, that's my time management issue. But of course, as Angela would, oh, hi, Teresa. As Angela would know, I don't know if she's still here or not, that we kind of had our hands full planning for our retreat launch announcement. And, that followed the next day by Bible journaling. So it's been kind of, all things were kind of all coming together with the same deadlines in a sense. I'm going to position a couple more of these, and then I'm going to go back to the black, because there's no point in, putting down a whole bunch of stuff that is going to be obscured totally by the black. So yeah, we had our hands full getting ready for that. So I do need to, one of these days, just take some time and get caught up with the prompts and the lessons from Kelly. I'm also finding that I don't do enough sharing. Everybody whose lessons, whether they're free or paid, typically people open up a, either private group or a some sort of a mechanism for participants to share and support each other and so on. I'm not a Facebook person. I have a Facebook page, and I know that when I post to Instagram, it automatically posts there as well. That's why I guess people, if they do go there, they realize, oh, she's not dead yet. Here's another post. But honestly, it wasn't a platform that I ever had any, can I say that so boldly, that I never had any that I ever had any use for prior to having a channel. And that feeling hasn't really gone away since then. I think maybe if I would have been an early adopter and gone whole hog into the thing like some people did, or most people, or many people did, I might feel differently about that. And I also, unfortunately, or fortune. Maybe it means I have character and principles. I don't know. But unfortunately, I cannot separate. Well, I don't want to make absolute statements that maybe aren't necessarily accurate. In most cases, I have a very hard time separating my. Why am I using this dry cloth instead of a wipe? Separating a platform, a product, a thing from its owner, creator, whatever. So if Mark Zuckerberg, if what he stands for, I don't agree with, or I think that profit before responsibility and protection of the vulnerable, like children, is not first and foremost, then I have a hard time forgiving that. And I don't want to have my, I don't know, I guess maybe I'm not explaining this very well. You know, there's that expression about she cut off her nose to spite her face, or maybe it's actually in spite of her face. So I would much rather, based on belief, opinion, prejudice, whatever it is, avoid using something that may be good for me in the long run, or helpful to me, like Facebook, because I cannot abide the person or the principles or the operating procedure of said person or company or business or platform. Okay, let's pick a little birdie or two. So I'm going to have this bird looking into the picture plane. I'm going to pick this guy that's facing left. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we got people voting in favor of the nap. So will do. Julie, the further I get into a mixed media piece, I sometimes get nervous about messing things up. Do you struggle with that, Hazel? And how do you overcome? I started a piece yesterday, and she's at that moment now. That's exactly what I was saying. And I don't know, maybe you weren't here early enough to hear it, but it was that mixed media canvas that I had begun years ago. And some viewers had voted that I work on that next. I could probably get away with using this if I get rid of some of this black. So that was what I learned in the art classes that I've taken. You know, you don't want to be, and we were talking fine art. You don't want to be so timid and second guess yourself in the beginning. Like, throw some black down because, you know, as I said last week, the Louvre is not calling to ask for this piece, so pressure's off. So it's probably, like, obviously, you know, it depends on one's style and what you're doing. Is it a commission and you know, there's a sale and a customer to please? That's going to probably cause a person to do more pre-planning, pre-thinking, than if you just decide, okay, today I'm playing with my supplies. I'm still at the point where I'm learning what products do and how they act alone and together. So that's a different approach, a different mindset. So I think that I would say that the early stages of the creation should be what I'm working on and working towards more boldness, taking some chances, knowing again that there's really nothing riding on this, on the outcome, other than some growth and some lessons learned and so on. So, so be bold. And I don't know, Julie, if you started out boldly yesterday with whatever it is you're working on, or if you're a real planner and maybe you had a preliminary sketch, or you know, you knew you had your elements sort of pre-selected, or if you're more kind of going by the seat of your pants and letting the piece dictate what it needs and what comes next. Now, that said, however we get to that point, whether boldly or, you know, executing a plan, it does, every piece, in my experience, does reach a point where it almost, to some degree, I hate saying absolutes, where to some degree it becomes a make it or break it point. And at the beginning of this live, I showed you where that canvas of mine was. Now, again, I did it years ago. I have not that I've ever, you know, logged my hours. Oh, how much time did I spend on this particular thing? Even when I was actively selling art, just quickly pull this up and remind you. So it was this piece. And I was saying and showing that I had selected a number of paint chips just because I didn't want to paint my own paint chips with the colors from the actual painting. I had a bunch of paint chips and I used sticky tack to say, okay, if I were to add orange here, or if I were to add a light teal here, is that the right decision? So as you get closer to the end, the process slows down and really becomes well, it slows down because those decisions really begin to matter. I wonder if I could do a piece this big just on the napkin itself. Oh, and I should say, which reminds me, I need to get my March heart-to-heart schedule to Susan sometime soon. In March, let me just check my book here. We will have a bona fide artist as one of the guests. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So watch for one of, well, I mean, obviously, I believe you should come to every live interview or watch the replay if your schedule doesn't allow for it. Because every guest has something to teach us. However, in March, we'll have a bona fide artist, you know, a professional artist who has earned her living that way, who took a turn, or who has expanded her practice into mixed media, and has a very, you know, we always talk about style and voice, a very recognizable style. I will put that question to her, and you know, I am willing to bet dollars to donuts that she's going to confirm what it is that I'm saying, and that the closer you get to the end, the more the process slows down and the more deliberate your moves need to make. However, there is a long way between starting, as I did today with these red paint blotches, and you know, where this might ultimately end. In this case, we're somewhere in the, can I call it the messy middle? We're somewhere in the middle where I'm still trying to be a bit bold. I'm still trying to add some elements because we want depth, we want balance, we want good composition. And then when it gets closer to the end, so for instance, in that work at it until it makes you happy. Oh, Stephanie, hello. New to mixed media. Oh, from Portland. Okay. I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken. I'm Canadian. I live in Alberta, so some of this is, maybe believing stereotypes and so on. But I have this belief that Portland, Oregon, and surrounding area is a very artistic community, just like Sedona, Arizona has sort of a reputation, for mysticism and seekers and vision quests and things like that. So you can tell me in the comments if that is correct or not, or if I was sold a bill of goods. Okay, so Julie is saying, such great advice. I had a general idea in mind, and I've been going with the flow. I think because I love how it looks. I'm getting to the tentative stage about adding the last touches. Okay, so you're at exactly the crossroads that I'm talking about. So, you can, well, I guess you can tell us, is this something that you did in a video? So if we all quickly went to your channel, and is it something that's been posted and we can weigh in there? I know that when I typically do videos, I might ask for input or whatever, but it's really ludicrous when you think about it, because by the time my video is posted, and by the time you watch it, and by the time you write a comment, and by the time I see the comment, it's way past the point of influencing anything. It's different in a live chat. So last week, you guys know that we're here. You know that I was asking you in real time what you would do, and you were telling me, and I was doing it. So, hey, that means, hey, it just occurred to me, that means that if it turns out ugly, we're all taking the blame. And if it turns out like a masterpiece, we're all taking the credit. How's that for responsibility? So back to Julie. Depending on what the piece is, if it is a mixed media piece on a substrate of some sort that you could safely add those possibilities, so in my case, I was talking about paint swatches, because it's an acrylic painting on canvas with obviously some texture paste kind of stuff on it. I don't think, although nobody's saying don't do it, or I can't do it, or I shouldn't do it, although because I now consider myself more of a collage artist, there's nothing that says I can't finish that by adding some paper. I'm just giving you that as an example. I'm saying that depending on what it is that you're working on, if you can safely tack on some elements with sticky tack, because sticky tack is the best, unless you get crappy stuff like I had. It's the best in that it's not a paper clip, it's not a piece of Scotch tape or masking tape, it's not something that is going to further confuse your eye because the thing holding it is also visible. So if I sticky tack a paint swatch to the painting, that's all I'm seeing is the paint swatch. I'm not seeing the mechanism for holding it in place. And that way, so quite often, you may want to take your piece out of the room. Like, I don't know what your setup is, But I think if I recall from when I interviewed you, it seems to me it's kind of a shared space. You don't have a dedicated art space. So it seems to me that what I would do in your case, and this is what I've done when I've been in that situation, is take the piece, prop it up. So for instance, if I'm walking past the living room, maybe I've propped it up in front of the TV. So it's got that black background around it. Or maybe if it's a canvas and it's bigger, maybe I'm leaning it against the TV stand so that as I'm going about my business and just walking around, walking through the house, I can stop and look from a distance and see, where is my eye getting stuck? Because when I took critique class, that was one of the things we always were taught to watch for. Is there a place on your piece where sure as heck, every single time you look at it, your eye always goes to the same spot? If that is your focal point, then that's probably telling you, yeah, leave it. It's good. But if it isn't, if it's something in a supporting role and it's not allowing your eye to get to the real focal point, then you've got an issue and you probably have to deal with it in some way. So, and do that several times. You can do it over days, because honestly, and I had to remind myself when I heard someone say this, um, this isn't a race. We don't have to do this. We don't have to renovate the house in the space of one episode of a home improvement show. We don't have to create a finished piece of art in the space of one live video like this, or a couple of taped, progression type videos. Okay, let's see what she says. Something I'm working on for the weekly prompts we do on my channel and in our Instagram craft group. Planning on posting okay, so there is a bit of a deadline here. Planning on posting a pic on Instagram later today. Well, later today, it means you have several hours. And you know what? I also believe that even if you post it, that's how you felt at that moment in time. Now, you can do a cover your butt kind of a disclaimer. I feel that, I feel that this piece is done. However, I reserve the right to go, and I'm saying it like, a lawyer wrote it up, but obviously you say it how, in human terms. I know that I have sometimes, I do that Follow-Up Friday series sometimes where I show people how a thing turned out. And I will tell you right now that I have even changed it after I said it was done, and I taped it in a follow-up type video. So you can, unless you're selling it or giving it away, as long as it's in your possession, you can continue going back to it. Just like with that canvas that I'm working on. I've had that for years. And it's still in my possession, and I can still continue to work on it till I feel it's done. And honestly, we don't owe our Instagram followers or our YouTube subscribers. These things are a work in progress. Anyone who's seriously trying to get what we're saying is going to understand that this creating on demand is a bit of a false narrative. So If you love it as it is, then post it that way and say that. And you can also temper that and say, you know what? I love it as it is today at this point in my life as an artist. That doesn't mean to say that it might not change when my experience, my skill set, my taste, my whatever, evolve. Because honestly, that's the absolute truth. That is the absolute truth. Okay, I don't know how much longer I'm going to go along with this. I think I'll throw in another bird or two just because I don't have a very balanced distribution of the black, and the black is such a huge factor here. You know, if it were any other color, it wouldn't be the same story at all. And obviously, areas of highest contrast are areas where the eye is going to. So for it, oh, another good trick. Um, what are you doing with that? Okay, just let me catch up. Okay. So Susie, are you back from watching the working men in your neighborhood doing the snow removal? And then Julie, yes, and in reality, it's just a self-imposed time frame. My type A personality wants to complete and move on to the next prom. I'm behind it. Yeah, I'm a recovering type A too. And Anne just saying that she agrees that it's your art, Julie, and only you need to love it. Oh, Susie's asking what I'm doing with that pick. So I'm picking away at, I'm breaking up this background where it's a little too heavy or whatever, and allowing the substrate underneath show through as I did over here. It obviously works better before it is totally glued down. So that's why I'm kind of jumping all over the place here. Okay, I had a train of thought. I was still talking to Julie, but of course, anybody else who finds himself in the same boat. Oh, squinting. When you're looking at your, okay, two things. We were always advised in the art classes that I took, and I took several, to work on multiple things at a time. And the reason for that is that we don't want to get so invested and so nose to the canvas that we stop forgetting to look at the big picture. So I think in a previous episode I said something about, you know, we get to the point where we're working on this on these few square inches, and we're painting a tree, and damn it, we're going to paint every single leaf that is on that tree. So by working on several pieces, number one, it has a practical purpose in that it lets certain things dry. So if you're working watercolor, you know, unless you're working wet and wet, you want things to dry before you plow ahead and plow ahead, Susie, before you plow ahead and throw in something else that may turn into mud because you didn't have the patience to let it dry. So that was one thing I wanted to, you know, just repeat. I know I've said that before. The other thing is to squint. So if you've got that piece propped up in your office or somewhere in your house, and you're randomly, it catches your eye as you're just walking around, you know, minding your own business. Another thing to do is to squint, because squinting will definitely tell you where there might be trouble spots, where there are some inconsistent value changes. So if I were to squint at this, So this guy isn't glued down. So if I were to squint at this, I can see that, yeah, I've got, I'm getting to the point where I've got some pretty even distribution of the reds, because they were there all along, the greens, and the black. But right here is a huge space that you could drive a truck through. So that's why when I'm going to position my next black element, I'm going to get it into this area. And I'm going to be aware not only of what it does in the way of color distribution, but what it does in terms of, is it going to create another problem that is going to need fixing? So sometimes we can, particularly with paint, but again, for our purposes, let's think that no matter what we're using, whether, and I just love it, the Gwen and Tony hashtag paint with paper. I finally posted that video, or the day for that video finally came and went. And I can't wait to do another one. So I may say paint, but we can consider this a piece of black paint. So quite often, no, I shouldn't say quite often, sometimes we do one thing and it creates another problem. So again, we want our eye to be able to move around the picture plane. And because we are masters of our what do they say on sign? But masters of my own domain. We know that we are to some degree manipulating the viewer because we want them, their eye, we want them to do what we want them to do. We are, through the arrangement of the different elements, we are leading them gently by the hand to where we want them to end up. So, and I don't think I necessarily have an example I can point to here, but sometimes we can create a cul-de-sac, a dead end, a negative space that is going to be a problem down the road as we get closer to viewing our piece and thinking, okay, is it done? I wish I had something specific to point to explain that a little better. But, I guess if you think about it, you can probably almost imagine what I'm saying there. I'm saying that, especially at the end, see if what you're considering doing is going to create another problem that you're going to have to deal with. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because if the action you're about to take is going to improve the quality of the piece, then by all means do it, because you as the artist know that is the right thing to do. And you're going to deal with the consequences of that action by doing the follow-up thing. So I'm just, again, for maybe Susie, who chose to watch some men in coveralls, well, parkas, I guess, instead of me, what I'm doing is picking away at this to expose to break up the solid black in particular, and to expose some of the color. It's just making it a bit more interesting, instead of having these black holes where, again, an eye can stop and not move on. Like right now, so maybe this is an example of what I'm talking about. This could be a dead end. This could be an area where your eye goes and it can't go any further because it's such a solid chunk. So squinting, that was a really long, convoluted way, but hopefully I covered a few points there of saying squinting is really a good trick for discovering value, issues with value and contrast. And in the video that I did as a follow-up to the first few lessons of Amuse-Bouche, which was the collage thing I'm doing through with Kelly from Collage Lab, in there, maybe it wasn't during Trovember, can't remember when, I was saying I need to get bolder. So, okay, we have been at this, it's an hour and 45 minutes. So maybe I'm going to, see, I could save myself some work. Sorry. By tearing this back a little closer to the actual bird, rather than having to scratch away at it after the fact. Now, if this were a white background, you know that this would be a less important step because the white tends to just dissolve into whatever is underneath it. The black we have seen just sits on top and obscures. So I'm going to find out where to put this guy, and then maybe I'll have less picking to do. Now, birds actually, you know, birds can fly up and down. So I don't have to have him this way. I could position her so maybe she's going in for that stalk of wheat there, which means I'm still going to have an issue with not enough going on up here. But maybe in that case, maybe I choose some of this Queen Anne's lace, and maybe the Queen's Anne maybe. Okay, so see, this is also another example and perhaps a pointer that, okay, I'm thinking, pretend this was close to being done. And this is what I'm thinking, okay, do I add the bird or do I don't, you know, in, out, blah, blah, blah. Do I do it or don't I? Well, maybe that is not the sole solution that's required. So then I have a second or third element that I think is going to be required, but I'm not entirely sure. So another way to introduce some more of this very dramatic black could be to have this Queen Anne's lace coming in through the top of the picture plane and then still put my bird somewhere there. Or if I know that, see, that's where I have trouble with my logical brain. I was going to say, we know that things grow from the ground up. However, I've already thrown that on its head by having these ferns and other things going in every direction. So it's totally legit and acceptable to have Queen Anne's lace coming in from the top. And I don't have to be apologetic about that or convince myself that that's okay. So I'm going to do the Queen Anne's lace first. And you know what? The kid is getting smarter, learning as in real time here. I'm going to separate these two things again to avoid having to do the scratching back. And to maybe I decide that I want them closer than the napkin designer placed them. Upper right-hand corner. Okay, thank you so much, Julie. I guess that, you know, that touches my heart because that is what I'm aiming for. I don't appreciate videos that leave so much unsaid. I mean, I guess it depends. Well, again, I shouldn't be making proclamations, but so if a person has a good skill set and you essentially know what you're doing in a particular area, say it's making pockets or something, and you're just, cruising around the internet trying to find, maybe support a friend or see somebody else approach, or you really can't force yourself to do anything right this second. So it's a good stalling mechanism. Then you really don't care how good or not good, how well or not well the host is explaining what they're doing and why. To me, what is the point of doing a video if I'm not explaining something, if I'm not sharing an experience or a perspective or a decision or a rationale for doing things a certain way? That's as good. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong, but it just seems to me, why bother tuning in if you're not learning something? My song and dance routine needs work, so it's not like the entertainment value is so huge. And I know based on comments that most people, or at least the people that are moved enough to comment, they appreciate understanding the reason. So it's not enough to say, do this, do this, do this. How can a person translate that into their own projects and their own understanding if you don't tell them the reason? If you don't talk about composition, or if you don't talk about the golden mean, or if you don't talk about contrast and focal points and all of that. So now it almost feels like, oh my goodness, I need another Queen Anne's lace. But we're not going to do that till we position that bird. Maybe that bird is taking one of those seeds. And I'm going to, just for the sake of trying to be a bit bolder and maybe more intuitive, I'm just going to glue it down and worry about the fact that I probably need something more over here. Because honestly, we can only do one thing at a time. I know that in paintings that I've done in the past, and again, I'm talking in the context of those fine art classes and, showing in exhibits and getting juried into shows and so on, that there are times that there are multiple things that a piece needs to finish them. So you can't do them all at once. You can consider them with your Post-its or your whatever, but you can only add them one at a time. So there's then the opportunity after each edition to see, okay, did that help? Is that enough? It's sort of like that. I remember when I was dressing for the interview I did with Patricia and Mariah from PM Artist Studios. If you watch those ladies, you know that they love to, the dangly earrings, the big statement necklaces. They might even throw on a hat, or a scarf. So I, in solidarity with that, kind of layered on a bunch of jewelry that day. And was it Coco Chanel that said, I know my daughter has said this, you know, you kind of put all these things on and then you look in the mirror and you take one piece off. I think that's sort of the conventional wisdom. So, likewise with these finishing pieces, maybe that necklace was just one step too far. You know, maybe that okay, if you really have your heart set on the necklace, then damn it, those earrings need to go from chandelier to diamond studs or whatever, you know, so and again, I'm sure there are going to be some people who are thinking, "Well, who the hell do you think you are telling us all this? And I'm just here to have fun. I make art for the sake of fun." That is totally legitimate. I'm telling you my thought process and what my end goal is. I would hate to think, and again, I'm probably older than everyone in the crowd. I won't say older than all of you put together, but I want every day of my life, because I'm a committed lifelong learner, I want to get better. I don't want to have to look back over my life and say, well, yes, I did collage. I did mixed media for 15 years. And you know what? I set out to have fun. And darn it, I was having fun even on the last day I did it. Didn't learn a darn thing in between, didn't improve, didn't get more sophisticated in my creations. I just kept having fun. And you know, fun is in the eye of the beholder as well. This may look painstaking and painful to you, but the challenge of making what I define, not anyone else, what I define as a good piece of art as opposed to a mediocre or a shitty piece of art is fun, is the challenge, is the goal. So we may not be playing, you know, slap and tickle here, but it still is fun as far as I'm concerned, because I want there to be measurable improvement in my skill set. Oh my God. Okay, thanks, Angela. Your best is Susie. Honestly, if anyone ever needs to feel like they need or that they're being valued and seen, Susie is your girl. Okay, we're uh-oh. That flashing light is saying that the battery on my light needs recharging. So, you know, it's like when you're at the bar. I wouldn't know, I haven't been in a bar for years, but back in the day, if you were in a tavern and it was getting close to closing time, you know, they'd flicker the lights as kind of, you know, drink up. It's almost time to leave. So let's take that as a clue and a cue from the universe that it's time to leave. So let me hold this up and squint. It is not done, and I will continue to pick away at some of these solid pieces. Here, a few more here, and definitely over here. But I think we made some pretty good headway, and I'm also glad that for those of you who were ready to hear, that some of the things I said may have been useful to you as well. My intention is to keep showing up on Tuesday mornings to do this. I hope that you continue to join me. And if you can't be here in person, I hope you choose to check it out in the replay. I have been instructed to take a nap, and I'm going to follow those orders. So thank you so much for being here, and we shall see you in the next one. Bye.